All right, so with that, we go ahead and move on to question number 5. Isaac comes into this question with a lead of 3-1. However, Isaac is sitting out of this round, so he is going to take off for a little bit, and we're going to have a fight out between Evan and Greg. The question here is, what is the worst adaptation of a Dr. Seuss book? And Evan called going first on this question, so we're going to cut to Evan for opening arguments.
Back a long time ago, kids were sitting down at their television, celebrating Christmas time, where times were magical, and people could watch this animated film called How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It was a great little piece. People enjoyed it. Around 2000, Jim Carrey decided to dress up as the Grinch and ruin everybody's childhood piece by piece, as he decided to do a mock of what the Grinch is supposed to do. And one of the worst set pieces I've ever seen, and where they had these humans dressed as Who's, and it looks super ugly, and it looks unnormal, and it was that uncanny valley that Isaac was talking about. It was a pathetically directed movie. It got super boring, and it was just super gross. It was not pleasing to the eye. And this was also peak terrible Carrey. This is peak cheese Carrey. This is the Jim Carrey that we never wanted to have ever, and we got it. And it was one of the worst disastrous things that we have ever seen. The script was lacking all over the place. All the heart and emotion that we were supposed to feel, we didn't, because of the poor acting and because of the poor script writing and because of the poor direction. The movie was all over the place. It didn't know what it wanted to be. It was just this awful piece of garbage that took away. And to be fair, it was an unwanted, and we talk about this all the time. It was an unwanted remake of a classic animated film, and it's now taken away from the animated film.
Do you want to say the title? Because I don't know if you ever said it.
I did. It's How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Okay, cool. I just missed it then. Greg, go ahead with your opening arguments.
Can I just use his argument? Because every argument he made is applied to my movie, The Cat in the Hat. You're talking about, oh my God, I thought you were going to pick something. You picked the best. Recreation of Dr. Seuss' The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. I thought you were going to go with maybe the Lorax or something. You picked The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. That was actually one of the best movies of all time. The best Dr. Seuss movie besides the original animated Dr. Seuss. The Grinch is amazing. Jim Carrey is hilarious, but I'm going to get into the argument. The actual worst movie is Cat in the Hat. It was so bad, the director of the movie does not have another directing credit at all. It was so bad, he only does TV shit. He never did another movie again. Mike Myers is horribly miscast. You're talking about miscast. Mike Myers is horribly miscast as Cat in the Hat, who's supposed to be a lanky, skinny guy. Mike Myers is short and fat, and he brings his trademark Austin Powers humor to a kids movie. And the director himself said that when they went to the MPAA, they were surprised the movie didn't get a PG-13 rating because of holy crap. He makes a reference to a dirty hoe at one point, and then says, "Oh, don't worry, I love it, I hate you." He then he turns the mom. He sexualizes the mom character of the two kids, once by turning the magazine upside down and making her a Playboy centerfold. And then they go to an adult lounge where you see a skimpy clad Paris Hilton. You want to talk about bad movies? Are you kidding me? Lazy writing, bad acting. Mike Myers is basically just running his mouth and doing what he does. And was there really no reason to continue? The Cat in the Hat is way worse.
All right, and with that, we're going to go ahead and move into the main argument. 5 minutes on the clock when you guys begin speaking.
First off, you just said it was one of the best. You said it was one of the best movies of all time. You know that's just not right. You might have been slipping. I caught you saying that. And two, what the Cat in the Hat does so well, and you said it yourself, it's the great underlying jokes that kids would miss, that would fly over their head. The dirty hoe joke. And it did exactly what Shrek did, but it did it in live action form, and it's become one of the most funny Dr. Seuss movies to come to date. You could turn that movie on any day. If you're having a sad day, you turn that movie on, your day is instantly brightened because you're laughing your butt off every single time you put on that movie. Mike Myers gives a performance for the ages, performing as the Cat in the Hat, because he gives these whack job things that he's doing. Exactly what the Cat in the Hat would do.
And a abuser. He plays a drunken abuser. He basically is playing himself in the movie before he got good with 30 Rock. Kelly Preston is sexualized to the extreme. You're talking about how these jokes go over the kids' heads. It's a movie for kids. Why do you want jokes to go over their heads?
Have you seen Shrek? Shrek is a movie for kids. It does the same exact thing, and everybody puts Shrek on a pedestal. So why not put Cat in the Hat on the pedestal? It does the same exact thing. It tells the story of this man or cat who wants to be left alone, but he goes into these other people's lives and he tells a story, and at the end of the day, he becomes a better human being. And that's exactly what happens to the Cat in the Hat. He becomes a better.
The Cat in the Hat has no emotional through. Cat in the Hat is still a horrible cat at the end of the movie as at the beginning. He has no moral compass. The only people who have an arc is the kids in the movie, and it's a horrible arc. The actual people who have an arc is the Grinch. That's the whole part of the story, is that he starts to care for the Who's. And
is one of those performances where he's going, and he's all over the place. Jim Carrey's acting like he's chipping on
His repertoire with Max is amazing. His spoofing of Ron Howard.
Really? Time out. Did you say his acting with a dog was amazing? I could act with my dog. Come on.
Yeah, it would be horrible. The way Jim Carrey did it would be great.
No, the way how Jim Carrey did it was campy, and he made his dog look weird. It's like, and he started tiptoeing across the floor. Jim Carrey's performance is something that kills the eyes. No, the
makeup, you're talking about the makeup being bad. It won the Oscar. Rick Baker is an amazing makeup guy. It won the Oscar.
I didn't say the makeup was bad.
Direction, nominated for Oscars.
You never said anything about the makeup.
Yes, you did. You said the Who's made people cry and were horrible. And the Who's were great for depiction with the different characters like Jeffrey Tambor playing a great mayor, Bill Irwin playing the sympathetic dad who has to stand up for his family at the end.
But they're all flat 2D characters. They were all just there to serve the purpose of the Grinch, who fell flat because he wasn't written well. He was just written as this person who'd stay in his cave and goes, "Oh well, at the end of the day, he did this and this." Yeah, but we all know the story at the beginning. They didn't offer us anything new versus the animated film. We didn't get offered anything new.
The movie is how it's going to be told. They told it well with a great performance by Jim Carrey, who had amazing comedic sensibilities and had some of the best one-liners of all time, whereas Cat in the Hat is literally him doing what he does and trying to make
Hope is one of the most infamous lines in cinematic history. That gets referenced so much in movie forums all the time. Tell a good joke, and that's exactly what its purpose was. It gets referenced all the time because it makes everybody laugh because it is so well delivered in the film.
No one laughed. It is boring. It is too easy. It is Austin Powers doing what Austin Powers does and going for toilet humor.
Austin Powers was awesome. I don't know why you're backing off of Austin Powers.
Austin Powers does not work in the Cat in the Hat.
It was a fantastic creation. They brought it up and they said, "Here's the Cat in the Hat," and you got to enjoy it for what it was.
No, it doesn't. Austin Powers is great for what it was. You don't bring it to a PG atmosphere. And you're talking about comedic lines. You have Grinch, and you have the Grinch when he's alone in his own thoughts, and he has that great line with the echo of the chamber when he goes, "I'm an idiot, you're an idiot." This creates hilarious.
Yeah, that was it was very childlike humor. It's very serviceable. There was no meaning or underlying depth to it. It wasn't a joke that both kids and adults would laugh at. It was only for the kids.
It was for the kids. That's the whole point of the movie. Is the point of the movie for the kids?
You made it to make it both enjoyable for kids and adults. That's what good family films do. Is they make it enjoyable for both kids and adults.
The adults are going anyway because they're bringing their kids. The adult, and if you want to talk about a movie for adults, you had the character arcs of the characters. Like I said, Bill Irwin has to stand up to the mayor at the end when he doesn't at the beginning. You have
it's that we always see. It's a guy sitting there. I'm confident, and then at the end he becomes super confident about that. It's the same shit that we see all over and over again. That could be much better.
You have the bit with the phone.
That is time. Evan, you're gonna go first for closings.
Okay. The Cat in the Hat is one of the most memed and gift movies of all time. Is that because it's hilarious? It has great comedic sensibilities, and Mike Myers' performance as the Cat in the Hat is, to be honest, iconic. Everybody always talks about it when they say what is a great iconic performance. They say Mike Myers is the Cat in the Hat because it's funny, it's outrageous, it's exactly what you expected. You bring up the Austin Powers comic sensibilities. That's what great actors do. They bring what they have in their past and they bring it to their other roles, so then they can expand on their roles that they have, and they're able to mash up and keep continuing on their acting ability. The The Cat in the Hat is a very bright and colorful film, unlike The Grinch Stole Christmas. Sometimes The Grinch Stole Christmas is very dark and very gloomy, and it's not very pleasant to look at. The Cat in the Hat has very bright and vibrant colors, and it's a tremendous feat. And The Cat in the Hat has multiple story arcs going on, where we see the Cat in the Hat finally realizing what he's doing is wrong. We also see the kids trying to control the Cat in the Hat, and it's such a great, well-told story, and it's something that we wanted to see because at the end of the day, it's a great comedic, sensible movie that does both things. It tends to the kids where you see a big Cat in the Hat on screen, and also tends to the adults with the awesome jokes and also the story arcs. Because what those kids and the parents are, it's also their kids at home. It's their imagination that they get to see throughout the Cat in the Hat, and it's a brilliant thing. And also with how The Grinch Stole Christmas, look, it had to follow up an animated film where it completely fell flat on its face. It couldn't hold up. Jim Carrey's performance is like he didn't understand the character. He didn't do his research, and it's a poor serviceable thing to Dr. Seuss because I think it limits the imagination. It limits what it's trying to do. It limits what Dr. Seuss tried to put out on screen, try to write out in his books, and the translation to on screen was a failure because it made these characters, it made these rhymes, and it made this book all look very two-dimensional when it's not.
All right, and Greg, go ahead.
I don't get it. Did someone make this an opposite battle and didn't tell me? Nobody talks about Mike Myers' Cat in the Hat performance, except the fact that it's horrible. You're talking about the Cat in the Hat was so bad that Dr. Seuss's widow banned any more live-action tellings after that. The director only did that one movie. It is such a bad movie. I can't believe that. I honestly feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone with this argument. Everything you said bad about Dr. Seuss, the Grinch, you just applied to Cat in the Hat, and I win my argument right there. The Grinch is funny. It's hilarious. The different quotes that Jim Carrey has. Am I just eating because I'm bored? Even if we get horribly mangled, will there be no sad faces on Christmas? The fact when he sees his the two adoptive parents, he goes, "You two are still alive." This shit is hilarious. Jim Carrey acts his ass off. The costume and makeup design, as I said, already won the Oscar. Cat in the Hat is a horrible movie. It is by far the worst Dr. Seuss movie of all time, not even living up to any of its previous billing. And it's just insane that how a movie that sexualizes Kelly Preston, a movie that treats Alec Baldwin as the drunken, boisterous fool that he is, and you're actually talking about how it's the most meme-worthy movie of all time. Oh my God! Yeah, let's just this thing's going on. The Cat in the Hat's worse. Let's go.
All right. Before we move on, just a quick couple fact checks. Same as we've done in the last round for the quick Rotten Tomato scores. The Grinch currently holds a 53% on Rotten Tomatoes. Cat in the Hat holds a 10%. A little bit of a difference. In terms of, and this is, for those of you who do not know, this is actually a true fact. Greg brought up the fact that the director of Cat in the Hat, Bo Welch's career was basically killed by it. For those of you who don't know, Bo Welch is a famous production designer. He's been nominated for Academy Awards for films like Men in Black, The Birdcage, and his first film, The Color Purple. However, his feature film directorial debut was The Cat in the Hat. He has not directed a film since. In fact, his only directorial effort since, where he has directed 4 episodes of the series, a series of unfortunate events on Netflix. I've actually seen the whole show. I can tell you what he made, but it's probably better than Cat in the Hat. All right. And then, just because I love worst questions, let's talk about awards recognition real fast. So Greg was correct in talking about the set design and the costumes. The Grinch was nominated for 3 Academy Awards. It was nominated for Best Costume Design and Best Art Direction, and it won the Academy Award for Best Makeup. In terms of everyone's favorite award show, The Golden Raspberries, How the Grinch Stole Christmas was nominated for 2, Worst Remake or Sequel, and Worst Screenplay, but it lost both to, respectively, Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, and Battlefield Earth. Deservedly so. And let's talk about Cat in the Hat, man.
Just give me the win and move on.
No. Let's break this one out real fast. Okay. So the movie was, believe it or not, didn't win very much, but it was nominated Mike Myers was nominated for Worst Actor. He was nominated for Worst Actor of the Decade. He was nominated for Worst. Alec Baldwin was nominated for Worst Supporting Actor. Preston was nominated for Worst Supporting Actress. Worst Picture. Belle Welsh was nominated for Worst Director. Alec Berg, David Mendel, and Jeff Schaffer were nominated for Worst Screenplay. Mike Myers and Thing 1 or Thing 2 were nominated for Worst Screen Couple. It was nominated and won for Worst Excuse for an Actual Movie, and it was nominated for Worst Comedy out of our first 25 years.
Oh, this is so good.
It's legendary.
However, it's based off of the arguments.
No. And that is completely fair. And there's a reason. Okay, you know what? People are going to hate me for this. There's a reason I read all that off. Okay. Because this category, this question is actually very similar to me, at least for the X-Men question. Because it's a matter of you guys, I wouldn't say necessarily a game, but Greg did state the obvious. You guys are kind of fighting the same type of movie. So it's just a matter of, can you get in those little individual points that hit it. I don't think anyone out there would say that neither film is great. I don't think anyone out there would say that either film is bad.
I would say his movie's horrible. I said that.
No. Sorry. You know. Sorry, they're both bad. No one would say they're good. You know what I mean. You know
I would say The Grinch is good. I like The Grinch.
I like The Grinch. Yeah, The Grinch is great.
You didn't fight.
I'm going away again.
I said The Grinch was great.
Jesus Christ.
Movie. It's funny.
Unfortunately, I'm thinking about it. And again, with Evan, it's one of those things. I appreciate the sentiment you were going for. I just don't think you quite hit it 100%. I'm going to give this one to Greg. So with that, we go ahead and move on to question number 6. So we are at the point now where if Greg can score a point before Evan can score his first, Evan will be mathematically eliminated and we will move on. However, Isaac, you are still in this and can still continue to earn points to delay that. So definitely
moving on to speed rounds. Let's go, Isaac.
All right. So again, because it's the title match, I decided to get creative with it. We have a movie coming out the week of, well, it actually just, in my head, normally we record these things like a week before they air, so I'm thinking in the future, but this Friday, or last Friday, because this airs on Saturday, a absolute masterpiece of a film called Show Dogs came out. And you can believe that because none of us are seeing it, let's be honest with ourselves. But here's the thing. It is directed by a legendary director by the name of Raja Gosnell, who has directed some of the absolute best feature films of all time. Some of the great classics not even included in this argument include The Smurfs, Home Alone 3, and Beverly Hills Chihuahua. How can you not argue for that greatness? But these three have found better films than those. My question to you, gentlemen, and Evan, you drafted this one to go first. Best movie directed by the legendary Rajat Bosnell. Evan, go ahead with opening arguments.
There's a movie that came out a while back. It's a fantastic film. It's a film that is based off of, like I said before, a animated cartoon show, and it's a fantastic movie, and it does so many things right. And it is the one and the only Scooby-Doo. This movie has many things going for it. But first things first, it has Freddie Prinze Jr. in it, and whenever you have Freddie Prinze Jr. in a movie, it's always going to be better. Second thing, it has probably the best cinematic casting of all time. Not even up for debate. It has Matthew Lillard as Shaggy. If you look up Shaggy, live action is one of the best frame to light, animated to live action pictures that you will ever see. And then his performance alone, he's able to elevate the cast of this movie, which, by the way, has one of the greatest scripts written in the world, going to visit these mystical different adventures and whatnot, and having them do to pull off, and who's that? It's just fantastic. And as I was saying, Matthew Lillard elevates the cast, makes everybody around him better due to his performance as Shaggy. The CGI of Scooby-Doo is fantastic. It is a completely believable dog, and he really binds well with the rest of the cast, and you can really buy the facts that he's there with everybody. It's a lot of fun. No matter what, you're laughing on every single way of the ride with the cast, especially with Freddie Prinze Jr. as Fred. It's such a great casting as well. Look, what Scooby-Doo does, it has a great cast, it has a lot of laughs, and it does everything that a Scooby-Doo show or movie should do, where you got at the end, you unmask the villain, and it does it in such a righteous way.
All right, and with that, we'll move on to Greg for his opening arguments.
I don't know if Scooby-Doo does have good things that going for it, but the one thing it doesn't have going for it is that Evan is fighting for it. But we're going to move on to my movie, which is the 2000 classic Big Mama's House. Big Mama's House was Martin Lawrence basically riding the train of Eddie Murphy in Nutty Professor. And the thing that it does better than really any other kind of man in a female costume thing, and it actually has a decent story attached to it, is that Martin Lawrence is an FBI agent who, along with Paul Giamatti, go to stake out the home of a family that they believe Terrence Howard, villainous character, is going to try and get there and steal the money and steal the mom and son, or kidnap the mom and son. And their plan is to survey it, but when they see that Nia Long's grandmother, Big Mama, leaves, they decide that they'll take matters in their own hands, and Martin Lawrence will take over the role of Big Mama. And he does it with very, very great comedic timing. He creates a very fun character where you actually get lost in the fact that it is Big Mama. When you see the two people together, it's actually a pretty good makeup job. The different scenes with the pregnancy or with the basketball hoop is a great kids movie that Martin Lawrence really excels in. This is the time before you think of Norbit, much late, 10 years later. This is a great, funny movie that Martin Lawrence really excels at. It created his franchise because it was that good.
All right, and Isaac, go ahead.
It's funny. Everybody started their argument with kind of a glib, sarcastic remark as to how this is the good movie. And it's funny because everybody knows that they're joking. Everybody knows this question is kind of a gag question and all these movies are bad. Except Never Been Kissed is actually a good movie. It actually is Raja Gosnell's best movie. It's actually a good movie. It is. And I'll explain why as I take you to church. It's a good rom-com. It's 21 Jump Street, but female-centric and with a romantic twist to it. Drew Barrymore perfectly cast, charming, commands the movie. John C. Reilly, all the supporting cast is great. John C. Reilly's fantastic in it. Lily Sobieski is spectacular. I don't understand why she didn't become a major star after this movie. She's incredible in this movie. This is a great movie to watch and be like, that person's in this. A young James Franco's in this. Octavia Spencer's in it. It's the best reviewed of any of his movies. It's got a great soundtrack. It has an actual emotional arc in it, actual good messages in it. Scooby-Doo and Big Mama's House are one-joke movies that are awful.
All right, and with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the main arguments. 6 minutes on the clock when you guys begin speaking.
I want to congratulate Evan for saying that Scooby-Doo has good CGI with a straight face. That CGI is awful.
Really?
It's awful.
No, because here's the thing. According to the MTV Movie and TV Awards, it has the best virtual performance in a movie. Therefore, it has good CGI. Try me. And also, I would like to point out the fact it has some awards behind its belt. David Newman won the award for the BMI Music Award. And also, I'd like to bounce off as one of the best writers of this decade, James Gunn, attached to this movie, just showing how well it's able to translate this tale. And also, on top of that, I'd like to point out, Isaac, that your film, it has all these fantastic actors way before their peak, so they're out of line. They don't know what they're doing, and it just kind of it makes for this movie where it's just kind of a mosh of all these actors being all awkward with each other. And it's not really fun to watch.
Speaking of Evan's point about the actors in your movie, where you said it had a great message, there are so many almost instances of pedophilia in that movie because of underage sex. Michael Vartan is basically crushing hard on a woman he thinks is in high school when he's his teacher. You got Drew Barrymore, who doesn't pass off as a high schooler and who almost gets it on with a high school kid, even though she's, again, older than that. There are, I don't know how half the people in this movie don't go to jail because of almost having sex with underage people. It's
okay,
basically
but Greg, here's the problem. You're knocking that movie for pedophilia. Your movie is literally the reason why trans actors cannot get into the industry, because these people who think that they're good enough to transform to play women, that's not fair to trans actors, because that's actually what they're trying to do. But no, your movie has to be transphobic, and that's wrong.
Years ago, where it's not
transphobic, racist, sexist, insensitive to anybody with body issues or body confidence. It plays off of an old stereotype of this overweight black woman in a house. Oh, that's funny. It's a one joke. Man in a dress. That's funny. It's completely insensitive.
For kids, which is what it's there for.
No,
it creates
it's
great scenes.
It's not for kids at all.
Scooby-Doo takes all the wink things of the show, and it basically just takes it up to 11 because all of it.
That's what we want. That's what we wanted exactly out of this movie, especially with it being live action. We need that campiness. That campiness is what excels this movie, and it goes on.
It basically is the weed. Is the weed advertisement Colorado needed to get it passed. It ruins a beloved character in Scrappy Doo by making him a villain. The CGI is horrible.
That was fun.
This is basically friends got together and said, hey, let's just do a movie together. We'll maybe make some money, but in the end we'll suck because it's Sarah Michelle Gellar and her husband Freddie Prinze. It's their best friend Matthew Lillard. It's not a good movie.
One of the greatest parts, these people are having a good time making their movie while not having to be transphobic or racist or having to make pedophilia jokes on the side.
No, but your jokes are all too dumb for parents, and the violence is too much.
Dresses up as a nobody. You mean when Scooby-Doo dresses up as a dress in the airport scene? You mean that?
It's a dog. If you're trying to make a dog for dressing up,
it doesn't look like a dog. The CGI is so bad. I think it's a goat.
Dude, the CGI was fantastic, especially for the 2000s. It's revolutionary. It was ahead of the Phantom Menace in its time. It was something to behold because we could buy that there's a dog on screen.
You say a lot of things, Evan. That's up there with some of the most ridiculous.
It's bad as the Phantom Menace. At least that movie made money. This movie sucked.
We're not about making money. We're talking about which one's the best one. We're not talking about whether it's not making money or not.
Straight face.
Come on, stay on track here, Greg. Stay on track.
I can't believe you're arguing with the fact that the straight face with an argument ago where you said an animated turned into live action ruined it, and you're sitting here making a case for Scooby-Doo. Talking about a two-face pair.
It hit all the points that it needed to hit. It hit all those little notes, the callbacks to the fans, the things that we could enjoy because
guy. Nobody wanted that.
And the hyperbolic of the best acting of all, or the best casting of all time is ridiculous. There's been much better casting.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not saying it's bad casting, but the best casting of all time.
It's a fantastic casting. It's exactly what the people wanted. And his performance was out of this world because we always knew Shaggy was a drug head. And we finally got Shaggy as a druggie. And it was fantastic.
Sugar Ray is in your movie, and that is the worst crime of any movie in this argument.
Why not? Why can't we have Sugar Ray? You got something in it?
No, the worst crime of any movie in this argument is having a movie where they think it's funny to play on old, out-of-date stereotypes and play up to offensive jokes and think that that's entertainment. That's
you can't. Sorry, Isaac. You are
the people actually making out with people who they think are underage.
Not being able to perform and having awkward pedophilia jokes with each other. That's not good.
That is not my movie. My movie, you guys made it a movie. No. That's part of the thing in the movie is that every character is saying, no, you can't. There might be, like, these idiot kids might feel attracted.
The Ferris wheel part. The Ferris wheel part. Almost kissed.
Woman. He's not attracted to another student. He's attracted to
a high schooler. He thinks she's a high schooler when he almost kisses her on the Ferris wheel. And then when Drew yes, he does. And then when Drew Barrymore almost makes out with that high school kid at the party. And it's so bad.
He just dances with her.
When they go to the bedroom, and then Drew Barrymore, it's Drew Barrymore acting like what she thinks a high schooler would work out, and then it's not
don't
where
you
what she thinks.
dare talk about Drew Barrymore's acting in this movie. She steals
Drew
this
Barrymore has always been an overrated actress just because people find her cute, and that's what they move forward towards in her rom-coms. All of her rom-coms have been severely overrated, especially this one, because it says, "Oh, I've never been kissed before."
Okay, and that is time. That is time on the argument. Evan, you are first for closings. Go ahead.
So here's the thing about Scooby-Doo. It is one of the best transitions from animated cartoons to live action for a few reasons. It has some of the best performances of really campy characters, and that really transitions well. I could scream about Matthew Lillard all I want, but it wouldn't be a great casting without the rest of the cast. The performances of Daphne, Velma, Freddie Prinze Jr. as Fred, and the voice of Scooby-Doo himself was so well portrayed on screen. You could really buy that they're one cohesive unit and that they're moving forward together as the mystery gang. Where are you speaking? No, it's my turn. Moving forward, and it also won some awards. It won the Teen Choice Awards. People actually enjoyed this movie. It won some MTV awards, and it moved forward. It had 5 wins and 14 nominations total in award season. That's a pretty good feat, especially for a movie like this, one that people didn't think would be good. And also, not to know, it had James Gunn writing the script of this movie, and how James Gunn was able to translate what was put in the cartoons, this very difficult task, and be able to put it on screen and make it believable was a incredible feat. It took small things from the other movies and put them into the one. It was such an incredible idea, and that they brought it all together, and it really works well for both the kids and the adults due to some of the drug jokes that were involved there. We always knew that Shaggy was a druggie, and they pointed it out, and it's fantastic. Now, Greg, not to knock your film, you can argue it's a piece of its time, blah blah blah, and it doesn't matter. It really doesn't in the long run, because films affects people, and that film clearly affected people negatively, because we've had this issue of transphobia for the last 17 years, and that film was part of the problem. We've had this issue of racism for the past 17 years, and that film was part of the problem. That film was just part of a problem of bigger issues, and it did not tackle it well. And that movie is super campy. It's super awkward to watch because you're watching Martin Lawrence dress up as a big mama, and it's not really fun to watch at all. It's something scary, and you really don't want to watch that movie more than you just sit down for. And then, look, your movie here, Isaac, it's okay at best. It's got that problem where you're sitting down, you're going to watch it, and you're at first you're buying it like, wow, this has a decent cast. This has some potential, but it runs down all the same freaking comedic, romantic comedic guidelines that does every single time. It has those same type of cliches, and it becomes a bore fest, and no one wants to watch it because it's the same freaking thing every single time, and you get bothered and annoyed watching it because you want to see something new, you want to see something fresh, but it does not deliver that. It delivers a movie where all the actors are way before their prime. It delivers a movie that is very terribly directed, and it delivers a movie that focuses on pedophilia, but it does not handle it well.
All right, and Greg, you're up next. Go ahead.
First of all, you're going to bring up awards. I love how you left out the Razzie Awards that your movie was nominated for. And I also love how you left out the Stinker Awards that your movie won and was nominated for. So don't bring up half the awards and leave out the other half. You want to talk about sexes. I think you don't know any of the actresses in Scooby-Doo because you said Matthew Lillard, Velma, Daphne, and Freddie Prinze Jr. I don't know if you can actually name an actress in the movie, which is just pretty sad. Your movie is a piss-poor adaptation and just craps on the legacy of Scooby-Doo, which is still going on. Luckily, this movie didn't ruin that. The acting is way over the top and done to an extreme level. And as I said, your movie is the worst because it gave us Sugar Ray. Going on and Never Been Kissed. Never Been Kissed is, again, you have way too many close interactions of underage sex between people who think the person is in high school when the person is an adult, or when the person is an adult and is about to make out with the person in high school. You have a contrived plot saying, hey, we're going to send you to high school even though you don't look like you're in high school. I don't know why they didn't cast someone younger. They should have. Drew Barrymore was spin writing off the effects of E.T. for too long. The actors in your movie are just bland, two-cut characters that don't really bring anything, and the resolution at the end where, oh, she's finally kissed by Michael Vartan on the baseball field is not sentimental, it's not lovely, it's just bad. Big Mama's House, it has no racism or trans issues. That's the fact they made 2 more sequels from that. And as we've seen with movies before, if there is those kind of issues, they get stopped in their tracks, a la Norbit or a la Ghost in the Shell. These people get stuck on it and they take it down. These movies, there were 3 of them because these movies were funny. It's a great movie for kids, such as the basketball scene where Martin Lawrence in the Big Mama's house and the kid takes him to school, or the giving birth scene, or the anything with Paul Giamatti where he's having this slapstick. Because people forget how amazingly funny Paul Giamatti is. He creates this great slapstick character, and that's why Big Mama's house is just a better movie than yours.
Okay, and Isaac, go ahead.
Okay, Big Mama's House. Your defense is, my movie's not offensive because they've made more of them. No, they just made more offensive movies. They might not depict trans issues or body issues or racism or sexism or transphobia. It doesn't directly depict it, but that's the problem, is that it treats them all as a joke, and they don't address it. They just use it as a joke. They treat this stereotype as a joke. They make it one note. And it commits the cardinal sin of a comedy not being funny, but that's besides the point. Or maybe it is the point. Scooby-Doo. This movie is a movie that was made for nobody. The jokes are too dumb for parents, but too extreme for kids. The violence is too much for kids, but too cartoony for parents. Like, there's nothing about this movie that's attractive. The CGI, whatever you want to say, is bad. The casting, however much you want to hyperbolically say it's the best of all time, that's just stupid, is okay at best. It's serviceable. The jokes aren't funny. My movie, the 3 knocks against my movies is the actors in it are before they were famous. That makes it bad. No, it doesn't. It's cool to go see them at their start and say, oh, they are good here too. This is an underrated performance. But John C. Reilly steals almost every scene he's in. The other knock was it's like other rom-coms. It's similar to other rom-coms in the fact that there's a romantic element and there's a comedic element, true. But what my movie has that other movies don't is that it has a great message about bullying and about how high school, as bad as it is, or as how much you want to try to fit in with the cool kids, guess what? In 20 years, it's not going to matter whether you're a cool kid in high school. High school is finite, and it matters more about what kind of person you are. The third one is the one that keeps being brought up, is that it addresses pedophilia and does it in a terrible way. No, it doesn't. It puts characters in these situations that could be reflective of real life, and they make the right decision. They don't do anything in this movie that's immoral. Like, I love that you guys bring up this horrible thing of, that's terrible. No. There's some dumb high schoolers that have crushes on older people, and the older people make the responsible decision to not do anything. A teacher who's like 25 has a crush on one of his students who, guess what, turns out to be, and it's the only one he has a crush on, guess what, turns out to be, she's the same age as him, so it's not that big of a deal anyway. So this whole issue is a non-issue. My movie's better reviewed than both of yours. It's funnier than both of yours. It has more heart than both of yours. It's better acted than both of yours. And guess what? The direction, not bad. Soundtrack, great. My movie is objectively better than both of yours.
Okay, once again, another good round, guys. Just to run through some fact checks real fast. Again, as with questions like this, we'll do the Rotten Tomato scores real fast. Scooby-Doo sits at a 30%. Big Mama's House also sits at a 30%. And Never Been Kissed sits at a 57%. In terms of stuff with the movies itself, so just to fact check, Evan was correct. If you did not know this, James Gunn is given a screenplay and story credit on both this film and the second film. The actors that Evan did not mention out of the main 5, he mentioned Freddie Prinze Jr., who plays Fred, and Matthew Lillard, who plays Shaggy. The other 2 are Sarah Michelle Gellar, who plays Daphne, Linda Cardellini, who plays Velma, and the one that nobody probably knows, voice actor Neil Fanning, is the person who did the voice of Scooby-Doo in the film.
Scooby-Doo.
It is also the only film of the three that was nominated for a Golden Raspberry. It was nominated for 2. It lost Worst Supporting Actor for Freddie Prinze Jr. to Hayden Christensen in Episode 2, and it lost Most Flatulent Teen Targeted Movie to Jackass. And also, I did run the math real fast when talking about Drew Barrymore's age and Never Been Kissed. In terms of the plot, she is an undercover person going back into high school, so she should look older than high schoolers. It's the same joke they make in Jump Street. It's just more self-referential there. Also, when the film was made, Drew Barrymore would have been around 23, 24 years old. Her character in the film is 25, so she is on target for the age that they were trying to make the character within the film. So the age is not a matter of issue there, at least of how old she should have been. She was perfectly cast age-wise for what they were doing with that movie. Greg is the easiest to knock out of this round just because I don't think any of his defenses were that strong. And Evan and Isaac did hammer in the fact that the movie is offensive on a lot of different levels. And that's not that it again, I'm not speaking from a personal level. I've personally never seen or have any interest in watching Big Mama's House. But when you're talking about the points that Greg brought up include the fact that it's good content for kids to watch and that it spawned a franchise. And I think that perpetuates the points that Evan and Isaac made in the fact that it enforces and enhances a lot of very negative stereotypes in bad ways. So Greg's was the easiest to knock out. So when it comes down to Evan and Isaac, I'm actually going to give this one to Evan. I think despite the fact that the points that you guys used to take down his movie were repeated a lot. The fact that the jokes may not have necessarily a target audience to hit. It was brought up that it ruins the character of Scrappy Doo and that the energy in it amps it up too much from the original cartoon show. But Evan by far had the most defenses of his film. He talked specifically about Freddie Prinze Jr. and Matthew Lillard's performances, but said the fact that the cast was well cast for the characters that they were making. And even if Isaac did say it was hyperbolic to say best casting ever, he did even admit that for what they were doing, it was at least decent enough casting, which is in a positive range to admit. The CGI was a little contested about Scooby-Doo, but it was a point that he brought up. And he did touch on the fact that, and Greg did mention this, that he did previously argue that animated to live action transition was not good in the Grinch Cat in the Hat argument. But Evan did argue on the fact that the way that the movie translates the show to the big screen is done in such a way that it does respect the show and what it did in certain ways, and that it could hit audiences that did enjoy the show, even if it was, argue that some of the jokes may be a little off-brand for the type of movie that they're making. But I thought Evan brought the most in that round, and for that I am going to give him the point on this round. All right, guys, and with that, we are heading into the 7th question of this never-ending match. The score is currently 3-2 to 1 with Isaac in the lead, but we got 2 questions left. This could swing any sort of way heading into that speed round. And with that, the next question we have, this is one I'm excited to see fought. What is the most Spielberg-like movie not directed by Steven Spielberg? So this is what movie brings forward those qualities that we most associate with a Steven Spielberg film, but it is not directed by him. Greg, you drafted to go first on this one, so go ahead with your opening arguments.
This is really not even a contest because I chose 2011 Super 8, directed by J.J. Abrams. The whole movie is an homage to Spielberg. It is set in Ohio, where Spielberg was born. Abrams got the idea when he and Matt Reeves worked on restoring Spielberg's Super 8 movies. He is a producer on the movie, and is actually, if you look at the poster, is actually on the poster right under J.J. Abrams. And he is on set pretty much the entire time, even mentioning the fact that it is one of the most fun he's ever had on a movie set. The movie was done as an homage to E.T., The Goonies, especially if you think of The Goonies with the kids, the 8 kids that go on the adventure with the Super 8 camera. The end of Super 8 basically is a big referential point to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. one of Steven Spielberg's best, one of Spielberg's most influenced movies that influenced his career was Cecil DeMille's The Greatest Show on Earth, which is and he pointed out specifically a train crash sequence that J.J. Abrams basically uses as an homage in Super 8 with the big train crash sequence, paying homage to that, and the fact that that put Steven Spielberg, made him want to be a director. This movie is basically what Steven Spielberg would have done if he wanted to do it, if he wanted to do E.T., Close Encounters, and Goonies 30 years later. It is a fun. It is also, and it's not even that. It's also a fun, good movie, and it's not even a contest as to what movie that would have been done by Spielberg.
All right, and Isaac, go ahead.
So I chose to answer this question a little bit interestingly. My movie is Midnight Special. Because I took this movie. This question is not like what movie apes Spielberg the best, but like what feels like what Spielberg would do, like an original movie. I feel like Midnight Special feels like what a young Spielberg would do as an original movie. It's got the sci-fi element. It's got the familiar relationships. It's got the overarching government agency. It feels like a little bit like Close Encounters, but not so much that it feels like an ape. When you watch this movie, you don't think like, this feels like a Spielberg movie. No, because it just feels like it's inspiring. It feels like what Spielberg would make if he was inspired to make a sci-fi movie with kids again. Like, this just feels like it takes his tone and his touch without trying to imitate him, because you can't imitate Spielberg. You just can't. You can try. Super 8 did, but it failed. So Midnight Special feels to me like what a Spielberg would make if he was starting out fresh. Most original Spielberg.
All right, and we'll go ahead and move on to Evan.
Steven Spielberg has always been known for directing big-budget blockbuster movies. He has always been known for directing movies that have sort of a magical element to them, sort of a sci-fi element to them, some sort of action-adventure element to them. There's a movie that came along. It was the 6th film in a franchise called The Revenge of the Sith. And it was directed by the almighty George Lucas, but he needed some help. So who did he call? He called his friend Steven Spielberg. And do you want to know what Steven Spielberg did? He ghost directed this thing. He ghost directed it up the wall, and he made it a Steven Spielberg movie. And the way how he built up Emperor Palpatine, the cinematography, especially on the scene on Mustafar, and the fact that it feels such, and for me, it reminisces, especially Obi-Wan's journey, of a Indiana Jones type movie. Revenge of the Sith is a very encapsulation of what Spielberg wanted to do with Star Wars, but he actually didn't direct it. He did it his own way, getting through Lucas and how he's able to fight through that. But Steven Spielberg had left his mark on Revenge of the Sith, and that's why it's the most like Steven Spielberg film without it being a Steven Spielberg film, because it was literally everything that he would have done in a Star Wars movie.
Okay, and with that, we're going to go ahead and get into the arguments. Guys, 6 minutes on the clock when one of you begins speaking.
Revenge of the Sith?
Let me start with one thing, and then you can speak. No! Okay, go ahead, Isaac.
Revenge of the Sith feels like a Spielberg movie, or it's the most Spielberg-like movie. I was expecting the Goonies or some other, like, playoff of... Like, no, Revenge of the Sith isn't like a Spielberg movie. It's like a kind of decent George Lucas movie.
No,
it's the best of the original trilogy.
That's where you're mistaken.
But no, it is
Obi-Wan's
not
journey
Spielberg.
during
There's
that...
nothing in that movie that feels like Spielberg except the E.T. cameo.
I would disagree. If you look at Emperor Palpatine's journey and how the villain develops in that movie, and how it for me it's reminiscent of the Shark in Jaws because of the way how it's just dark and mysterious. The way how it's dark and reminiscent at first, and then all of a sudden you get that full realization of who Anakin is, fighting his own person who built him up all these years. It's such a character arc, and it's such a Steven Spielberg way of telling things, because it becomes a friend and a family dynamic, and that's what Spielberg's good at.
First of all, that he had nothing to do with those movies. His scenes, as George Lucas said, were the animatic stage of the Mustafar duel and the Yoda duel. Which, if that's your argument for Steven Spielberg being great, those were two of the biggest crap CGI fests of all time.
The Battle of Mustafar is known as one of the best lightsaber battles of all time. I would hope you never say that again.
I'll say it again. It's a really crappy CGI duel fest. I don't know why I'm arguing you. You're out. Isaac, Midnight Special is basically Super 8 light. It is a valiant attempt at a Steven Spielberg nuance, but it's way too bogged down in the whole cult of personality thing, which Steven Spielberg would never do, and it gets lost in the at the ending with the aliens, with the kids' abilities that they have. It's basically what Super 8 would have been if it was just a little bit of a worse movie and didn't have Steven Spielberg's input.
Here's the funny thing about Super 8 that you kept mentioning. You said, yeah, it was a crap ton of homages. Okay, it was an homage to Steven Spielberg, but that doesn't mean it's a Steven Spielberg-like movie. Just because you homage to someone doesn't mean it's like them. That's wrong. That's one of those circular type of argument things.
No, the fact that he did the same scene at the end of Close Encounters, or the fact that they have a group of kids, as in Goonies, or the fact that they have, they only have the dealing with lost parents, as the main kid is with losing his mom, which Steven Spielberg has in his movies, where kids are usually missing one parent. That is exactly what this happens in these in Super 8. That is a great homage and an aping of his style, which everyone could see Steven Spielberg doing Super 8.
No, it feels like a J.J. Abrams movie. The type of cinematography that's used, the type of beats that they have in the movie, it's a J.J. Abrams movie just with references to Steven Spielberg in it. But the problem with Midnight Special that I want to jump into, the reason why it doesn't feel like a Steven Spielberg movie, it's something that takes inspiration from it, but it doesn't scream in your face, Steven Spielberg. This doesn't scream in your face. This is kind of what I wanted. This is like a Steven Spielberg movie. I couldn't see Midnight Special in his cinema in his, I can't say the word, but you get the point. And his role and his filmography. I apologize, Isaac, but I couldn't see it in his filmography because it doesn't.
People couldn't see AI. Artificial intelligence in its filmography either, but there it is. It feels like something different, but something familiar. There are elements of Midnight Special that feel Spielbergian. Super 8 is way more obscene than any kids movie Spielberg made. It's a cheap imitation that relies too heavily on Spielberg homages, and the ending is awful. The ending is truly one of the worst ending to one of the best beginnings.
Super 8 is a great ending, and it's playing a great homage to Close Encounters, with the alien moving off to his home planet and getting away from the army that tries to get at him.
Dude, that's great and all, but if you keep having homages, but with J.J. Abrams shots, with those studio type shots where it's made to be a studio movie. Here's the thing about Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg was a studio director, but he made it his own. You know it's his own movie. You know that's a J.J. Abrams movie when you're watching Super 8.
And you know Revenge of the Sith is a George Lucas movie because it sucks.
Not at all.
Yes. Let's talk more about Revenge of the Sith. What the heck?
If you look at Revenge of the Sith and the way it's able to have these wide angle shots and how it's transitioning between these lightsaber battles, all the action is very clear and vivid. Is very key. Here's what's going on. No, not here. Here's what is going on.
The action is clearly George Lucas. Yes, it is. It's bad. It's bogged down. It's too CGI fest. Steven Spielberg, I didn't even realize that, but should be embarrassed that he had to take a part in that. It's a bad movie.
That you're bringing that little small part of his career and being like, this feels like a Spielberg movie.
It's not. I'm speaking for the whole movie. I'm speaking for the whole movie in itself. The character arc that Obi-Wan takes, the character arcs that Anakin takes. That's
where do you see that anywhere else in Spielberg?
Yeah, name another movie.
You don't have it. There's nothing that Spielberg has done that feels like, oh, that inspired something in Revenge of the Sith.
Indiana Jones. Revenge of the Sith feels very much like Indiana Jones, especially with the Obi-Wan journey. Because to me, the way he has to be able to look over his... he has to be able to look over towards Anakin, but then he has this whole decision: do I do this or is this? And it's a very family type movie, and that's what Indiana Jones, the Temple of Doom is. It's a very family confined film.
When does Indiana Jones ever have to make a choice about killing someone he loves?
So the only thing Indiana Jones and Star Wars Revenge of the Sith have in common is that at one point in one of the movies, they both have lava in them. Like, that's
Yeah.
literally it.
There's nothing similar between Indiana Jones' story and Anakin or Obi-Wan's story. They're completely different. There's nothing
in the way how they
And time.
portray.
movie.
All right, and Greg, you're going to go ahead and go first for your closings.
The question was, what is the what movie not directed by Steven Spielberg could you see being directed by Steven Spielberg, or is more Steven Spielberg like? Revenge of the Sith, even though it might have 2 scenes, maybe ghost directed, or I don't even know. George Lucas is pretty shoddy on that. The whole movie could not be directed by Steven Spielberg because he could never do something that shitty. The dialogue, the acting, the action, the whole character arcs is nothing similar to anything in Steven Spielberg. It's just a lunatic thing to even put Steven Spielberg even close to that kind of movie. Midnight Special, as I said, is Super 8 light. It's the whole. It doesn't. The ending with the kid having to deal with his powers with the government is talk about batshit out insane. Doesn't come out. It comes out of left field. There would never be anything revolving a cult, which does not create something great. Super 8 is the exact movie Steven Spielberg would do in 2011. It is very reminiscent, very homage-like to the other movies. It is shot exactly how he would shoot it, with the train scene in particular being one of the best shot scenes, just period. It is a beautifully shot intro to that movie with the kids. And it's all about Steven Spielberg putting kids into that kind of aspect, centering the focus on them, just like in Super 8. This is exactly how Steven Spielberg would make this type of movie.
Okay, and Isaac, go ahead.
Yeah, Revenge of the Sith is just a really weird pick. The only thing that it says is that Spielberg had input on certain scenes that, he would definitely, nothing in that dialogue, nothing in the characters, nothing in the action. Even if he had input in the action scenes, they don't feel like Spielberg actions. It genuinely, I don't even know what to say about this movie because there's nothing to base it on. Like you said, Indiana Jones, yes, that's very similar. This space opera of the fall of this man is very similar to Indiana Jones going around rescuing artifacts. Not so much. Like I said, the only similarity is there's lava in Temple of Doom and there's lava on at the end of Revenge of the Mustafar. Super 8 relies too heavily on Spielberg motifs and themes and moments. It feels like a cheap knockoff. It feels like somebody trying to be Spielberg. It doesn't feel Spielberg. It feels like a cheap imitation. All of it feels like somebody tried to do Spielberg and failed. Midnight Special feels like Spielberg went out and made an original sci-fi movie. You can still see certain themes or certain aspects of it that feel like he could have his fingerprints on it, but it feels new. It feels like a new Spielberg movie. And that's what I mean. Like when you watch Super 8, there's nothing you can think about but Spielberg. Like it's just like this wasn't directed by Spielberg. What the world? This is just repeating. Yeah, it feels cheap though. It feels cheap. It feels cheap. I'm saying my movie feels like a Spielberg movie in the fact that it feels like Spielberg at his best. It feels like Spielberg creating something new, something sci-fi. There are aspects of Spielbergian motifs in it, but it's not relying on references to old Spielberg movies. Spielberg doesn't do that. He doesn't refer to himself, and that's what Midnight Special avoids. It doesn't refer to itself.
All right, and we'll go to Evan.
Okay. You said something. You said, Greg, you said that Spielberg doesn't make shit movies. I think you forgot something called Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out. You forgot AI. You forgot The Lost World, Jurassic Park. He has made his fair share of bad movies. Now, whether that speaks to the volume of whether Revenge of the Sith is bad or not, that's up for debate. But to say that he doesn't make bad movies is just wrong. Steven Spielberg, however, and why Revenge of the Sith is so similar to a lot of his things, it's the buildup. It's the way how he's able to build tension between characters. For and I really like hitting on this relationship between Anakin and the Emperor. How once the reveal comes, it's a very big payoff because we have the full time of Anakin and the Emperor going back and forth, playing this teeter-tottering game, which is so crucial to this relationship, and it's such a Spielberg thing to do because he's really good at building that tension in his movies. And Isaac, you said it yourself. You don't know how to describe how it's Steven Spielberg. Yes, it's because it's something more than that. You have to realize what Steven Spielberg, when he left this touch on Revenge of the Sith, it screams Steven Spielberg because it was exactly what he set out and intended to do, and it's to tell a good story and to be able to tell these big set and action pieces. And you said the action doesn't portray that way. What Spielberg was able to do, and what the rest of the prequels weren't able to do, was to portray these lightsaber battles with these big sweeping shots, yet being able to capture the emotion on the people's faces. You could see the emotion on Anakin and Obi-Wan's face, and it's very intense and very fiery. And then you also got the big grand scope of where they are on the planet of Mustafar, and I can even go back to the fight with Grievous and Obi-Wan Kenobi. It really was reminiscent, especially with the tunnels and whatnot. Very reminiscent of Steven Spielberg. And also hit on Super 8 really fast. We've hit on this many times, but it's clearly a J.J. Abrams movie. None of the cinematography at all reminds me of anything Spielberg-esque, and it's just and like you said, it's an homage to Steven Spielberg. Anyone can do an homage to Steven Spielberg. I could do one. Isaac could do one. Anyone can go around. Take shots of their plush toys, of my plush toy and my Indiana Jones hat, and I can do my own homage to Steven Spielberg. Doesn't mean it's a Steven Spielberg-like movie. I think that's where you're mistaken. And then Isaac, with Midnight Special, the problem with Midnight Special is it is very, very horror-like. It has these horror-like tendencies where it tries to really, and it's not a horror movie, but it has these horror-like tendencies where it becomes a thriller, and that's not really Steven Spielberg's style. And I don't think the cinematography really matches what he tries to do. Hence why I don't think you could say Spielberg inspired, but nearly every single director in Hollywood is Spielberg inspired for what he's doing. And also, one more thing that you guys have to realize, Spielberg is a blockbuster director. The two films that you guys picked are not blockbusters. And that's where I'm struggling with your guys' picks, because they're not blockbuster movies. And Steven Spielberg is a blockbuster director, but he directs his own movies.
All right, guys. Once again, we had a really, really good fight on our hands. I like the different points of view you guys bring to what a Spielberg film is. No real fact checking on this. It's just the only thing that I wanted to look at was Greg did make the comment that Spielberg doesn't make shit films. So I decided, for curiosity's sake, to start looking up. And obviously, again, always preface Rotten Tomatoes is not the end-all, be-all, but it is a good aggregator. So I decided to go look up some scores and see. Spielberg has 3 rotten films in his entire directorial career. Hook at 29%.
Yeah.
1941 at 33%. And The Lost World Jurassic Park at 50%. The other 2 films in his bottom 5 are Terminal and the Twilight Zone movie at 61%. The other 2 films that Evan mentioned were AI at 76% and Crystal Skull at 77%. So critically, they weren't reviewed bad, but we know there is some controversy around those films, so his point does stand valid in terms of that. This one's actually kind of easy for me, honestly. I give it to Isaac on this one because I think they both combated Evan really. They both combated Evan by talking about different aspects of the filmmaking and how it doesn't feel like a Spielberg film. And Evan did combat back in some way, but I think the counter arguments were better than what Evan was putting against them. And then it came down between Isaac and Greg's, and Greg's pitch was the fact that Spielberg was a producer on the film. He was directly involved. And so you have the person who created these things right there to help give that tone and that feel to the film. But the problem is, and these were the counterpoints put up against it, is the fact that it does feel consistently like it's just stealing from other Spielberg films, or it's just a reference fest to other Spielberg films. And that filmmaking-wise, it feels like a J.J. Abrams film, specifically just referencing Spielberg tropes and bits from other movies. And unfortunately, it is one of those arguments where it comes down to a specific point that was said. And I like the point that Isaac made of Midnight Special feels like this original type of sci-fi film that would have been made in probably around the same time like A Close Encounters came out, but it still brings that Spielberg film and that type of Spielberg, magic may not be the right word, but it brings that type of feel to it while still remaining its own original film. But it meshes enough that it doesn't, come off like what they were saying about Super 8, where it's a certain director's style aping another person's film type. So for that, I do think Isaac gave the best argument on that round, so I'm going to give Isaac a point on this one. And so we move into the final question, and basically here is how it stands. If Isaac wins this point, that means we go into the speed round of a score of 2-5, which means Isaac has to win 2 speed round questions to win the entire match.
How many speed round questions are there? I'm sorry.
There's 5 total.
5 total.
Again, it's extended like the main match.
That's right. I forgot.
If Greg gets the point, that means we go into the speed round 3-4, and so that just means it's a little bit of a closer game. If Evan wins the point, that means Greg and Evan have to play a speed round question to tie break to who goes into the speed round.
Shit's tense.
So here we go. And with that, question number 8 is, what is something we have yet to see in the Star Wars movies that you would like to see adapted over? And the preface on this was, you can pull something from other types of canon, you can pull something from Legends, or you can pitch an entire new idea. There was no limits on what you could say. There was no other limitation other than that. It was just something Star Wars that we have not seen. Pitch it. Isaac, you are up first. Go ahead.
What I want to see in a Star Wars movie is a Star Wars movie as a whole. I'm not pitching one specific moment or whatever. I'm pitching an actual movie. Star Wars, I want to see an anthology Obi-Wan solo movie. I want to see Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan between Episode 3 and Episode 4. I want to kind of borrow some elements from the Last of the Jedi youth novels that came out, some of the earlier ones, where Obi-Wan hears about this old Jedi friend in trying to hide out and get away from the Empire, and he basically goes on this search rescue mission. In it, at the same time, a Boba Fett, I guess at this point he'd be a pretty young Boba Fett, is out trying to hunt him down as well. So it's kind of this cat and mouse game. There's also some interesting Force things going on, where Yoda basically has trained, as he said at the end, he basically trains him in for interacting with Qui-Gon Jinn as a Force ghost. So we'll have Liam Neeson back as Qui-Gon Jinn, interacting with Obi-Wan, and basically I just want this to be an interesting movie about Obi-Wan that expands the universe, that we get some cool moments. Boba Fett has always been underserved in these movies. I want him as a cool villain. We don't have to go huge like Darth Vader or something. So yeah, not galactic stakes. I want it to just be a rescue mission, a cat and mouse game between Boba Fett and Obi-Wan. And explore that world some more.
Okay, and we're going to go ahead and move over to Evan next.
So, Star Wars is at a peak in toxicity with fandom. Nobody likes Rogue One anymore. Nobody likes Han Solo. People hate The Last Jedi. People love The Last Jedi. And people are combating each other. And I think a lot of this has to do with familiarity. Every single thing that every single movie that we've touched into, it's the same thing. It's something that's rehashed, something that we've seen again. So what I'm pitching is, it's going to be, it's over a 3-film trilogy-esque thing that can be done over 10, 15 years. It doesn't have to be rushed. It can take its time. And it's going to be called The Tales of the Outer Rim. It's 3 different movies, and its preface says this. You have 3 different Force users all across the Outer Rim, a place that has never really been deeply explored in the new canon, where you have different gains, not really fighting the Empire so much, but really surviving and fighting against, natural things or other smaller Force users, where the 3 Force users across the Outer Rim don't have to get involved, but like these small little gains, kind of like a rebel kind of game, but not necessarily rebels themselves, but a small gain of fighters are able to fend off for themselves and survive. And it's 3 different stories And they all kind of connect to each other in the facts that it's able to expand the universe, but it's also about how each Force user is able to maintain the balance of the fighters versus the evils that they have to fight and moving on. I think what this does for Star Wars and fandom as well, it gives everybody a relaxer. It gives everybody a breather, because we have all these stories that everybody's so familiar with that if you can give a curveball from left field that people aren't expecting, it's going to be able to let them slow down and actually just let them enjoy the Star Wars content that they see in front of them.
All right, and Greg, go ahead.
All right, so they're pitching overall movies and trilogies and everything. And what I always wanted to see in Star Wars, I mentioned it right before when The Last Jedi, I'm looking for something I thought they were going to do with Benicio del Toro's character, but it turned out they did not. And I'm looking for the first true 1v1v1 lightsaber battle. It's as opposed to at the end of Phantom Menace, where we had the 2 versus 1. We have never seen 3 capable Force Jedi go up against each other and have that great battle that we want to see. That I think could be done very well in this 3rd movie. And my pitch is that actually a former Knight of Ren, presumed dead, instead was found and taken in by a warrior monk played by Helen Mirren. She's been around through all the dangerous years and wars and tumultuous years, and she sees the Kylo Ren has allusion to, but he's not taking it far enough on her stance, is that the Jedi, the Force, all of it just needs to go away. The Sith, Jedi, Force, it just needs to go away, and it's creating this horrible malady on the universe that we need to get rid of. And she does this by training the Knight of Ren that she found, played by Michael B. Jordan, to go ahead and train him up to attack Rey and Kylo, and then have this great 3-way battle. And I'm putting it on the planet of Felucia. I don't really have they go to Felucia for whatever the MacGuffin of the movie is going to be. But they get stuck in Felucia, which is a very tropical, lush planet. It's got a big forest of carnivorous plants, animals, giant creatures, and it'll create a great not only 1v1v1 battle, but also have everyone be looking on themselves, be creating this great storyline that we can do by them having this great 3-way battle and having to use the Force to navigate the surroundings. And really what we want to see is this great lightsaber battle that we haven't seen, and a great way to end this trilogy that we have.
Okay, and then you did catch it at the end, but I just want to clarify, you're setting this in Episode 9, correct?
Yeah, this will be in the new,
cool.
The next Star Wars movie that comes out after last.
Just the quick thing was, you said the 3 people involved are Kylo Ren, Rey, and Michael B. Jordan's new character?
Yeah, called Date a Catch.
Okay, cool. Just for clarification, for the sake of notes, thank you, Greg. All right, guys, certainly interesting 2 full movie pitches versus more of a scene pitch in our next saga film. Time starts. Just out of curiosity's sake, it's a rule that nobody ever seems to remember, but anybody want to use a time extension?
No.
Do you want to make this longer?
I feel like it's been long enough.
Well, long.
I might as well ask. All right, 6 minutes on the clock. Go ahead.
Isaac, are you trying to piss off Star Wars fans? If you want an Obi-Wan movie, you have to involve Maul, because then at that very where Obi-Wan eventually does kill Maul in Rebels, the payoff isn't there yet, because we need another confrontation between them where Maul is dying to see Obi-Wan, and that's why we want that Obi-Wan movie so bad, is because we want Maul. All the other stuff to have Boba Fett, you need that Boba Fett in the Han Solo movie. You don't need him in an Obi-Wan movie. That's just a waste of a character again, like you said. And then, Greg, are you really trying to kill fandom right now? A 1v1v1 with a Helen Mirren character, which what you said that they just want done with the Force. Didn't we see that with Luke Skywalker? He just wanted done with the Force. We don't need a retread of another Luke Skywalker. And then also that planet that you're talking about, like another Dagobah. We don't need another thing like that. We need more expansion. We need fandom to relax. You guys are really trying to piss people off.
Is the third character in my battle. Second of all, Luke Skywalker was just sitting out on an island on his own. He actually had nothing to do with trying to stop the Force. My character is going to try and stop the Force by getting rid of all the Jedi and Sith and all the Force users and stopping this battle. Your movie just sounds like the beginning of Phantom Menace with all this political crap that everyone hated in the prequels. I didn't really it didn't really have any kind of nuanced story that you did.
No, and it has nothing to do with political crap. It's about the balance of the force and being able to maintain peace. It's nothing about
didn't have specifics that revolted around your plot. It was nothing. You just had a trilogy that would take place in 3 different timelines with 3 different movies. You didn't really get into any specifics that anyone cared about. It wasn't anything good.
Right,
Obi-Wan.
I don't even know what your pitch is, Evan. But firstly, you said in your opening that the toxicity level of Star Wars fans is so high right now that we got to give them something to settle down. So your answer is to give them something that nobody cares about. The one thing that almost every single Star Wars fan agrees on is that they want Ian McGregor back as Obi-Wan. And as for Darth Maul, 65% of the fan base don't even realize that Maul's still alive. They don't even realize that. They don't watch the extended universe. This is something, an Obi-Wan movie is something everybody can get behind. So you said they give him a curveball. Last Jedi was a curveball. You saw how well that worked out.
Right, and the curveball you're giving is a cat and mouse movie with Obi-Wan Kenobi. People don't want to see that. People want to see Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Literally everybody does.
No, they don't want to see a cat and mouse movie with Obi-Wan, though. They want to see an Obi-Wan movie where he's trying to figure out the Force and he's battling his own battles on Tatooine. They want to figure that out. They don't want
general. It's just recreating characters that we've already seen before. We need to create something new, and once this movie is over with, we can move on to something new. That was what
something new.
I'm saying about the hate for.
To give them a brand new character in the 3rd movie of a trilogy that has set up all this arcs, all this drama. You're going to introduce a new character with a new backstory, tell all that, and then have
You think there's going to be a new character anyway? This will be a way to create a good character with some connection to our villain. The former Knight of Ren that Kylo Ren thought was dead, but now is coming back to end it all. And it creates this whole closing arc of the Force being too much and as being a bad, toxic thing. Talk about toxicity. The Force is a toxic thing on the universe.
Last Jedi. That's literally what Luke was talking about.
And then it turned out that he was wrong because at the end he turned out that it was a good thing. What's fascinating, here's the thing about a 1v1v1 fight. You're right, it rarely happens in movies, and the reason is because it's complex. It's hard to do. Pirates 2 did it very well between Will Sparrow, Jack Sparrow, and James Norrington. The thing about a 1v1v1 is that you can't have one good guy and 2 bad guys. It has to be you're mixed about who should win this. Your 1v1v1 is I'm rooting for Rey.
Your 1v1v1 requires practically a Reylo relationship, but then that becomes a 2v1. It's nearly impossible to do, and it makes But Isaac, I also want to hit off on the fact that your movie is way too convoluted. You want to have the cat and mouse game. You want to have Boba Fett involved, and you also want Obi-Wan to involve in the Force. There's too much going on here.
He's in the battle. He's dealing with the duality of him, and is creating this great great character arc for Kylo Ren, where it's basically arcing Darth Vader as he has been doing, and it's gonna have this great Kylo Ren has to go between the good and the bad, having to it's gonna have to decide whether to let Rey die or save her in the battle. Obi-Wan, nobody wants to see the characters we've already seen. We want new stuff, and I think
literally the Force using a way where it's actually
nothing. You're new stuff
the galaxy.
Every single time something Star Wars comes out, the thing that every fan tries to do and create a rumor is that an Obi-Wan movie is coming about. The movie premiered the other, or something that happened at E3, something happened, or Solo. Yeah, everybody was excited about Solo.
Time. All right, but Isaac, you are up first for closing, so go ahead.
All right. We talk a lot about what fans want. And the one thing that you look online, the one thing every fan, whether they hated Last Jedi or not, I didn't like it, but the one thing everybody can come together and agree on is that everybody wants to see Ian McGregor back as Obi-Wan. The movie I'm pitching is an interesting movie that takes him not on Tatooine again, because I don't want to see Tatooine again. It takes him to another planet where a Jedi is hiding out from the Empire. It's a rescue mission. At the same time, he's got to stay one step ahead of Boba Fett and get away from him. It's an era that hasn't really been explored of the rise of the Emperor or rise of the Empire with these remaining Jedi. It has been explained in the extended universe, but this is the main movies. Evan's pitch, you said there was so much going on in my movies. I genuinely don't even realize what your pitch is. Like, there's something with the Force and some 3 characters on the Outer Rim. That's it. I don't care about them. I don't care about the Outer Rim. I don't. There's nothing there that interests me. I don't want to see Star Wars by way of Avatar or something that I'm just completely not even aware of. The 1v1v1 fight, like I said, that fight is interesting, but you can't just have the fight. It's also about the story elements you're introducing. You're introducing two new characters, both of them with backstories, both of them with new points of view. Some of the themes that have been explored before, especially in The Last Jedi, there are things that these two movies have set up that you're going to mess with if you introduce this stuff in Episode 9. It's going to crap on the movies, and it's going to make them even worse. And like I said, the 1v1v1 is complex. You have to do it the right way, and the way you're pitching it is just wrong. It would be you're rooting for one person and not conflicted about who you're rooting for. A 1v1v1 would be nice to see once, right? Done right. But what you're pitching, isn't it done right?
All right, and we'll go ahead and go to Evan.
J.J. Abrams is the director on Episode 9. J.J. Abrams doesn't have the skill and or the artistry to be able to portray a 1v1v1 fight. I think you're forgetting in The Last Jedi the whole thing of Luke Skywalker was to get rid of the Force. And he did it in the best way possible, not even using it. The most powerful Force user in the galaxy doesn't use the Force. That's the best way to get rid of it. And the way how you're trying to have this Helen Mirren character bring out this Michael B. Jordan character, it's another plot line taken away from the conflicts between Rey and Ben. And it's gonna make for a story that's just way too convoluted, something that won't make sense, and it's gonna probably divide the fandom even more. And sure, will it make money? That doesn't matter at the end of the day. And I'm gonna keep bringing this one in. The toxic fandom that we live in right now is so bad. We saw John Campy made a post about it today. He was super upset because people are calling him, asking him to make death threats. It's dumb. And a movie like this, where you're bringing in another character but taken away from the actual central issue, is only going to divide fandom more. And it's directed by J.J. Abrams. I don't think he has the directorial capabilities of doing this. And Isaac, you said your movie will explore areas that haven't been explored much. That's what Rebels did. It was looking for Jedi who were still alive and being able to find, being able to keep Kanan and Ezra's their Force alive and finding other Force users such as Yoda and Ahsoka Tano. And they also run across Obi-Wan Kenobi at one point. So there's that. You said you want to make it a rescue mission while staying one step ahead of Boba Fett while still exploring the Force. There's too much going on in that movie. There's too much going on, and the plot's going to get convoluted, and it's going to become confusing. And I do believe it will divide fandom more, because what happens if they portray him wrong? What happens if you don't get the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie that you want? Fandom will be even more upset at that point. So what I'm trying to pitch here is the fact that you have three stories that you have never seen before on screen. 3 stories about just each 3 different bands of teams, all living on their own in the Outer Rim, where it's harder to live than the Inner Rims, because they don't have the supplies or the technology or even the basic planets to live on, because it's harder to live out on the Outer Rim. And then on top of that, you have 3 different Force users finding the balance of the Outer Rim. No political shit's going on. I never said that. I said that there's going to be 3 different Force users who are going to be finding the balance of the galaxy. And I find that crucial, because you need that Force element in there. That's what people go to Star Wars for, to understand the Force and what's going on. And I think what this idea is, we're finally going to be expanding the universe. 2 things that your movies fail to do: expand the universe. I saw that, Isaac.
All right, Greg, go ahead.
Again, Evan's pitch is not a pitch. He just said he'll have a trilogy about people on the Outer Rim who are living not in the political sphere. So we're going to have the poor people of the Star Wars, basically, and 3 of them will have the Force powers. And you want the balance of the Force. We've been talking about the balance of the Force for 8 movies now. We'll be talking about it for the 9th movie. The balance of the Force is the issue with Star Wars. And it's creating this disconnect that nobody wants, and people want to. People don't want to know more about the Force. If they wanted to know more about the Force, they would have liked The Last Jedi, because that's all it went into, with more Force stuff. Ewan McGregor, as Collider, wrote an article back. An Obi-Wan movie is just a bad idea. For one, as Evan said, they do it better in Rebels. And if you have a movie, it'll just wipe that from canon. Then people who love Rebels will hate it, and a lot of people do. But the bigger thing that causes the issue was it keeps the Star Wars universe too damn small. We're always stuck on these same characters over and over again, and we do want new characters. We want new stuff. We want something different, and we don't want it to be regarding. We don't want it to be stuck on this Force thing, which is why the idea that the 1v1v1 with the decision to stop the finally end the Force is where we should go, because then it will lead for more movies to finally take up with different stuff, not having to do with Jedi or Sith. And Evan keeps bringing up the fact that Luke Skywalker was trying to do that. No, he wanted the Jedi to end. And he wasn't doing anything to actually do anything about it. He knew that there would be more Force people coming. He just thought that if he wasn't teaching them, they wouldn't be able to manifest. And he was an idiot, which is why nobody liked the Luke character in the second one, because he's completely different from what his character actually is. And you brought up Dagobah, which Dagobah, by the way, is a swamp, not a lush forest-like place like Felucia. Which is where we're going in this place. The 1v1v1 is a great way to end this trilogy and end this Jedi Sith storyline in a great way. They keep talking about how you don't want to introduce a character this late in the movies. That's what they always do. You think the only characters are going to be what the characters are? No. They brought in General Grievous in Revenge of the Sith. This is what they do. They bring in the new characters to have to create something different, and to have a different antagonist or a different hero or something different than what the other movies have been describing. This will be a way to create that great 1v1v1 lightsaber battle that I believe will create a great. I think J.J. Abrams can do it, for one. He's shown in his battles in the Force Awakens that he can have a good fight. The Knights of Ren connection to Kylo Ren will already have that built-in foundation, and it'll allow for the Kylo Ren arc to come to a complete storyline ending, with him having to decide at one point between saving or allowing Rey to be killed, and that is how he will be completely. He will create this great homage to Darth Vader by dying in Rey's arms, a la Darth Vader dying in Luke's arms, and it is the way we want to go with how we create this final trilogy for leading out for new stuff moving on.
This isn't a wrap-up of his argument. Sorry.
Okay. All right. The first one that I'm going to pull out is going to be Greg's, because I think between Isaac and Evan, they had a lot of solid hits against it. The fact that Evan did talk about the fact that J.J. Abrams as a director hasn't done anything that could prove he could handle this type of fight, which is being realistic looking at what the film has in front of it. He also talked about the fact that it could take away from the storyline of Rey and Ben. Greg did put in a pitch at the end that supported towards it, but it was still a knock that was made in the fight. And then Isaac talked about the actual technical aspect of making a three-way fight, and the fact that when you look at the fact that you either have two variants of a villain versus Rey, or you have the Rey and Kylo combination, the fact is it could be a very hard balance to try and make this a proper 1v1v1 fight based on character motivations and character history that's established within these films. And there was also the fact, which Greg did combat, but it is a solid point on the fact that you are introducing two new characters with two full backstories, with a spin on a plot that we've seen before in this trilogy, and it could possibly be a little too much to add to that final film. Again, Greg did kind of combat it in the closing, but I still think the point was valid in the fight. So his is gonna be the one that's knocked out first, which means it comes down to Evan or Isaac. Evan said that it would be a trilogy that focuses on three separate plots, three different characters, all within the Outer Rim. It's an area that we haven't explored yet, really, in the films. It's a separated story that could be easier for people to digest compared to the different movies that are related to constant the kind of the reuse of the same time periods and characters, and it will properly expand the universe in ways that the films may not have done yet. Isaac came up with the point of that it could, the way he was describing it, could possibly feel like a prequel film, and Greg did say that At least just based on the pitch that was given. No one would care about the story right off the bat, and it reuses the same Force idea that some of the newer films have been using. When we're looking at the Obi-Wan film, Isaac pitched a smaller, more character-focused story, a bit of a cat-and-mouse chase game that centers on Boba Fett and Obi-Wan. And it would also bring a little bit of a newer area that we haven't seen in film. Again, it was brought up the point of that Rebels did do this time period already, but Rebels is not a movie, and the question is adapting it to film. So in that sense, Isaac is protected on that point. But the point was brought up that most fans want and expect Maul to be in this film, especially considering his role in canon comparative to Obi-Wan in other parts of canon. And you do have to think about that when doing these types of pitches.
I addressed that. I did address that about Maul. I said that 60% of the fan base don't even know that because it's extended universe.
And that's fair, but that's not expanded universe. It is in canon. It's on a kids animated show, which is more popularly viewed than say the books or the comics.
It's not the movies, like you said.
I'm just saying you also have to when Star Wars sets up the universe the way it does, they have to respect canon. So I'm just saying that there is a part to it there. Evan did bring up the point that if Obi-Wan is done wrong, it could split fandom further, which played into his opening part of the argument. Greg argued that kind of already been through that time period a little bit, but again, be more on Rebels, so that wouldn't count as much. But he did make the point that it condenses the universe and makes it keeps keeping it within the same time period. Dude, I'm going to give the point to Evan on this one, because I think a big part of the argument was the argument centered around the fact that the films are continuously shrinking the universe and we're seeing repeated time periods over again. And Evan's is, even though it was not the fullest pitch, the question did not require a full specific pitch of something. It was just, what do you want to see? And a lot of the argument did center around the universe telling new stories and telling something new. Even Greg emphasized that with the idea of the 1v1v1 fight, something new, something fresh. Isaac did try to argue that with his Obi-Wan film as well, something new, something fresh, but there was combatants against both of those points that, well, especially against Isaac's, that this is a time period we've seen, this is a type of movie that we've seen already. Whereas in just the basic pitch that was given, technically speaking, we have not seen anything really within the Outer Rim. We have not seen a trilogy that has completely different focus in 3 different areas. And he did focus part of his argument on the fact that the fan base is volatile against each other. And he did support that, saying that perhaps a newer story with characters we don't know will be what fans need to kind of get back on board. Yeah, Evan gets the point on that one. Evan and Greg are tied at 2 apiece entering the speed round. So what we have to do is we have to play a tiebreaker question. Now, this question will not count for stats. The winner of this question does not gain an extra point going up against Isaac. It will still be a score of 4-2. This is just determining who will be the person moving on to the full speed round. Evan and Greg, are you guys ready?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. The question is, which Infinity War character that got dusted should stay permanently dead?
Maria Hill.
Drax.
Okay. So Greg did say Maria Hill first. There's going to be 30 seconds on the clock. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Maria Hill really hasn't had a real character since the Avengers, the first one. She's not really inconsequential to any part of the plot. You take her out of it, nothing will change. Drax is a main point of the Guardians of the Galaxy. He has the great repertoire with everyone there. You take him out, that takes a big part of the Guardians of the Galaxy group out. Again, Maria Hill doesn't bring anything to the story. I didn't even realize she was going to be dusted off. They just brought her out there because Nick Fury was there, and she could always come back in the previous early years, like she might be in Captain Marvel. But Drax is one of the funniest characters in the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay, Evan, 30 seconds when you begin speaking.
Drax the Destroyer has slowly become one of the most comedic, just overuses of all time. He is just there for comedic purposes, and he does not drive the plot forward. His emotional arcs anymore, especially when he went to go, I'd say, oh, I'm going to go kill Thanos, literally meant nothing because it was poorly acted. Dave Bautista is now phoning it in as Drax the Destroyer, and it's not working anymore. His chemistry with the rest of the Guardians of the Galaxy is going down. His comedic sensibilities are just going way too high through the roof, and Drax the Destroyer is no longer a character, but rather just
All right, 15 seconds on the clock, Greg, when you begin speaking.
At least Drax has a point. He's funny. Maria Hill has no point. And his interaction with Mantis that they're probably going to do in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is the point of his character. They had that whole love-hate thing, and the fact that his comedic sensibilities with the whole I can move without being seen is hilarious. He is still funny. He is still great. He is.
All right, and Evan, 15 seconds when you begin speaking.
You're forgetting something called the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is a TV series that is very popular, and the second that she comes back, the ratings are going to boost because she's a great TV actress. I forget her name, but she also played Robin in How I Met Your Mother, so we need Maria Hill back. But the thing with Drax is that he is being overused, and no one likes him anymore. He is not everybody's favorite Guardian of the Galaxy. It's either Rocket, Groot, or Star-Lord.
Colby Smulders.
Yes, Colby Smulders is the actress's name.
But I could identify her. You know who she was.
Yeah, no. That's fair. I'm going to give this one to Greg because in the purposes of the film, he was able to identify that Drax at least has a role of comedic effect. Whether or not you believe that role works or not is an opinion thing, but he at least identified a role. Maria Hill, he determined, was inconsequential to any sort of type of plot within the films. Evan, you did reference Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. However, obviously this was not said in the argument, but Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a TV show. We're referencing the movies here, and also Maria Hill is not a lead character on the TV show. That's just outside of the battle. But the fact is you couldn't combat her inconsequentialness to the plot within the films. Whether or not you agree, because I personally don't believe Drax is that funny of a character, Greg at least identified his role within the Guardians and his role within those films. So with that, Greg is going to win the tiebreaker speed round and move on to the legit speed round against Isaac. All right, and with that, Evan has been eliminated, which means no matter how this match goes, we will be getting a new Movie Battleground champion. So here's how this works. All right, so entering the speed round, here's how this breaks down. Isaac, you have to win 2 questions to solidify yourself as the Movie Battleground champion. Greg, you have to win
4.
At least 3 of these questions. That way.
I said it wrong. That was 4.
3 would put him at 5.
Okay, you know what? Fuck it. You guys have to win questions to win. We'll figure it out. It's okay. It's for those of you who want the inside track. It is 12:30 at night. My brain is fried. I just finished high school, so fuck math. Let's do this. All right. We'll figure this out as we go along. It'll be easier if I'm doing it 1 + 1 in my head. So, all right, you guys. And for those of you who may not know how the speed round works, there are 5 questions in this match. It's going to be 30 seconds on the clock and then 15 on the clock, like we just did. If we reach the final question, it'll be 30, 20, and 10. Any questions, guys?
Nope.
All right, you're both pros at this. May the best man win. What is the worst animated movie of all time?
Ice Age 5 Collision Course.
Okay. Greg goes with Ice Age 5 Collision Course. Isaac, because he has an answer, I'll give you one more time to think, but if not...
The Pebble and the Penguin? Pebble and the Penguin.
Okay. All right. We have 2 movies that people probably haven't seen. I know the entire internet is screaming, why didn't you pick the Emoji Movie versus Norm of the North? But that's just because it's recent. We have Ice Age Collision Course taking on the Pebble and the Penguin. Greg, you said yours first. So it's going to be 30 seconds on the clock when you begin speaking.
Ice Age 5 Collision Course is the mother of all cash grabs, and they take their animals to space. They're talking about prehistoric animals starting in Ice Age 1, and they go to space. That is fucking insane. Pebble and the Penguin is actually a pretty decent movie from 1995. Has some decent songs. Tim Curry, as always, is always a great addition to any kind of vocal cast. Ice Age 5 is just literally going into cash grab, and it's taking its characters out of where they should be, and it should have ended years ago, and it's just bad. It's pretty high up on Rotten Tomatoes, even ahead of Pebble and the Penguin.
Time. Isaac, 30 seconds on the clock when you begin speaking.
The first Ice Age established there was a UFO trapped in the ice. The only character to go to space is Scrat, and the rest of the characters stay on Earth. It's grounded. The animation is good. Pebble and the Penguin is terribly animated. It's terribly animated as a movie. There's scenes where characters are just frozen in the background and move, and they're supposed to be talking, and they aren't. There's scenes where the bottom half of the screen cuts out. It's bad. The songs aren't good. The story's terrible. It's a little bit misogynistic. And once again, as an animated movie, it just fails on the basic premise of it being animated.
Okay. Let me move it. Greg, 15 seconds on the clock when you begin speaking.
How many world-ending disasters do our characters in Ice Age need to go before they finally die? Pebble and the Penguin is all about how a penguin is trying to impress a love, and he gets bullied by a bigger, badder penguin, and he finally has to get back to her to solve his problem and prevent the bad guy from winning. Great.
All right, Isaac, 15 seconds on the clock.
With Ice Age, you know what you're getting. You're getting Scrat doing his antics, Sid doing his antics, and it's fun. It's fun. It's at least watchable. Ice Age is just bad, or Pebble and the Penguin is just bad. The story is pedantic, and the animation, once again, is just bad. It fails. The music is bad. The characters are bad. The acting, voice acting is not good. Martin Short is just terribly miscast.
Okay. Based on the argument, I'm going to give that one to Isaac. He was able, it was a little bit of a rattling, but he was able to rattle off more towards the end about what's bad about the movie. All I really got for Ice Age 5 was that the animals go to space, and that they're still surviving these events, and that Tim Curry was good in Pebble and the Penguin. All right, I'm going to give you a connecting point and 2 movies. Whoever says the first movie first gets to argue for it. The other person argues for the other one. Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. What is the better average Marvel sequel? The Wolverine or Iron Man 3?
Iron Man 3.
Okay. Greg gets Iron Man 3. Isaac, you're arguing for the Wolverine. Time starts for Greg when you begin speaking.
Iron Man 3 is a great closing arc to the to the Iron Man arc that we saw in the first movie, and it brings in Pepper Potts to make sure actually be able to do something instead of being a trophy wife in the previous ones. The Wolverine is bad. It tries to start off something good, but then it quickly loses its purpose with the metalloid samurai guy at the end. Shane Black creates a great story with some great wit and dialogue, and the Cerberus villains are actually comparable and better than the villainous craphead in the Wolverine, which does not satisfy anyone. The special effects are worse.
All right, let me just write that down real fast. All right, Isaac, 30 seconds on the clock. Time starts, you begin speaking.
In the Wolverine, you get another great Hugh Jackman performance as the Wolverine. You get a great homage to the Japanese stories of old of the lone samurai. You get a great bullet train sequence. It's one of the greatest action sequences ever put to film. Iron Man, there's bad extremist CGI. Pepper still gets saved a lot in that movie. It's depressing. It takes away the Iron Man suits and the heart thing at the end that never gets paid off, never gets followed. It exists out in a universe that it doesn't build up. It's not the Iron Man we know. At least the Wolverine we get, the Wolverine we know, and good action. And Hugh Jackman as the Wolverine is great as always. Once again.
All right. 15 seconds on the clock. Greg, when you begin speaking.
Iron Man 3 didn't have to build up to anything because it was the third movie in a trilogy, and that was it. Wolverine, Hugh Jackman is phoning it in, which is why it's so great to see him in Logan. Nothing good happens. The Cerberus, James Badale, and Stephanie Zozak are great compatriots. And Gwyneth Paltrow, again, is not a savior. She's a heroine. She's a villain. She's a great option. Unlike.
All right, Isaac, 15 seconds on the clock when you begin speaking.
Wolverine has some of the best action scenes with the Wolverine in any X-Men movie. The scenes where he's fighting the samurai are fantastic. The scenes where he has to perform surgery on himself is fantastic. Iron Man, the villain there is terrible. Mandarin is a false flag. It craps on the comic.
It's really close. But only because he was able to bring up more and different points in the second half of his argument. I'm going to give Isaac the point on this one, which means Isaac takes the victory and is the new Movie Battleground champion.
Wow. Good match, Greg. I did not expect it to go that way.
All right, so now let's go ahead and talk to the runner-up of this match. And that's not to say anything bad. He put up a hell of a fight today. It was a close game all the way through, argument-wise. Greg Weinstein. Greg, how are you doing?
Just want to say great job to Isaac. Hell of a fighting. I don't know if there was some kind of pre-match bias, but the arguments that the judge agreed with did not make any sense in terms of what the questions were. But what are you going to do? The match has ended. Great job, Isaac. I think you'll be a great champion, and you're going to defend it well with the ensuing people coming up in the future seasons. So, thank you.
All right. And with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the Movie Battleground champ, Isaac Horvat. Isaac, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. First, real quick, I want to say, Greg, it was a great match, and I want to give you all the credit of doing your match in the other league before this and then coming in here and putting up the fight you did. I always kind of looked at this match as a one-on-one me versus you. All disrespect to Evan, but you put up a good fight, and I expect to see you challenging me for the belt pretty soon, which I don't look forward to. But as I'm feeling right now, it feels great. It feels like when I first played in this league, that this was where I love arguing and I love movies. So it's been a long road. I redeemed myself for my 2 losses, and it was a great match. So I'm feeling really good, even though it's almost 1 a.m.
Yeah, no kidding. The only question I have is, obviously it'll be a couple months before we can see anyone challenge for that title. Anyone you know that's already played, anyone that you know might be getting into the league, is there anyone you think has a shot at coming at you?
Well, I know for a fact that Greg has a chance of coming back and challenging me for sure. As for people I haven't played yet, let's see. I know that they're on hiatus, but I know Luca Fallon talks a lot of crap with me, especially coming up. I'm a fan of his, and he disrespects me all the time, so I'm about sick of that. I'm ready for the respect I deserve, so I'd like to see him. Also, in your latest stats, you said something about a goat. I don't even know that guy's name. I only know him as the supposed goat, so I wouldn't mind facing him either.
All right. It looks like everything I do comes back to bite me. Fair enough. This was a really, really fun match. Congratulations to Isaac. Congratulations to Greg and Evan on solid performances. None of these calls are easy. Any of you guys watching this, comment below what you think on the fights, because most definitely I think there are going to be some differences of opinion. It's just that's the only thing with it is all opinion based on the argument. and that sometimes that means people have differing opinions. Last time there was actually no differing opinions. There was one opinion, and that's I was wrong. So let's see what the general opinion is on this one. You guys, first off, we'll go to Greg. Where can people find you?
The different movie networks that there are, WMG, whatever, all that.
All right, and Isaac, where can people find you?
On Twitter at Filmer2013, on YouTube, Isaac Horvat with only one A. I do a lot of gaming on there, so check me out there. And I'll probably be in the comments of this video and on other Movie Battleground posts.
All right, and that is what we want. You know, I want people to tell me I'm wrong because I like the discussion and I like the, you know, as much as I, you know, make jokes and shit about people talking shit about the calls that I make, you know, I enjoy it because it brings up discussion. Because the fact is, you know, with a game like this, you know, the whole point of this is to give people the opportunity to have these fights and have these debates and have this kind of fun. And then obviously, you know, everyone takes it seriously and everyone tries to do the best that they can. Even poor Subrath.
Does Evan take it seriously? An honest question.
I don't think he was taking it that seriously, but
Stegosaurus Rex.
But yeah, everybody, you know, we try to take this as seriously as we can, and we have a lot of fun while we're doing it. You know, what can I say about Evan as a champ? Existed. You know, it was the bane of my existence for a while. And I will still stand by to this day that in that match on that day, I thought Evan was the winner. I'll never not dispute that. I do think he was the winner on that day. And just like today, I do believe that Isaac was the best fighter of the three. That's nothing against Greg. That's nothing against Evan. They both did great jobs. But today it is Isaac Horvat that leaves as the winner. So definitely, guys, go follow his link, support him on YouTube. Go find Greg on all the different Worldwide Movie Game Network matches. Go support Evan on whatever he's involved in. Support all the Movie Battleground admins: Subrath Sharma, Robert Parker, Matt Beer, Jeremy Hastings, Linus Babcock, and myself, and Evan, of course. For once, I actually got all those out without having to look at a list. Go support, go join the Movie Battleground page with this title match. On Wednesday, we had our first match of Season 2 launch with Matt Beer taking on Nico Rigoli. And, you know, Nico will tell you he's someone who's been trying to get into this for a long time, and he finally got his match in. Go watch it to find out how that match went. But what I'm trying to say is you guys can be a part of this and play in this too, and the only way you can do it is if you're a part of the page like these guys are, like every competitor is. So join that page and be a part of the fun. If you guys are not a part of the Worldwide Movie Games Network page, join up there. You guys can see everything related to the Worldwide Movie Games Network, whether it is Movie Battleground, whether it is There Will Be Trivia, whether it is Full Metal Trivia, whether it is anything else that may or come in the future. We don't know. We'll have to see what happens. But go to there, support that page, subscribe to this channel so you guys can see all the content that gets uploaded on a weekly basis, whether it is There Will Be Trivia, which is coming up to the end of its team and singles tournaments. Obviously, Greg participated in one of those. Go watch that match to find out the results of that. And check out Full Metal Trivia on the channel. Check out our matches on the channel if you can sit through a movie-length episode of people debating over what the best fake dinosaur is. And with that being said, guys, for this epic marathon of an episode, Matt, I love you, buddy. Thank you for doing this for free. My name is Aaron Knoll, and we'll see you guys next time on the Movie Battleground.